So Jean-Claude Juncker lives in an absolute fantasy world, and it's quite amazing watching him interact with the rest of the European Union and the rest of the world. Just the opinions he has are so divorced from what I believe other people are perceiving, especially, people who are like, I guess you would call them Middle Englanders or Little Englanders. It's just incredible to behold. Thanks for the war, but pay up for Brexit talks. Of course you're going to say that. I mean, of course you're going to say, give us as much money as we demand. Europe is grateful to Britain for its actions in the Second World War. Well, you're welcome, Europe. You know, the place where the tyrants come from. You're welcome. We once again prevented you from falling into a despotic tyranny. And with Brexit, you're welcome again. But the government will still have to pay for progress on Brexit talks, Jean-Claude Juncker said yesterday. Well, actually, Theresa May had agreed to that, something like 40 billion. So yes, this is understandable. We understand that you will need our money, as you have always needed our money. And as the second greatest net contributor to the EU, we know how much you need our money, to the tune of something like 6 billion net or something, whereas the Germans it's 8 or 9 billion net. Anyway, the European Commission President said that Britain's so-called divorce bill was analogous to paying for a round of drinks, and then claimed that the euro had maintained peace on the continent. Well, let's assume, for the second part, let's just assume that's true. I mean, I don't believe that it is. I believe the catastrophic devastation of Europe has maintained peace on the continent. But let's assume that the euro has done this. Do you think it's going to maintain peace in Greece, or Portugal, or Italy? And for how long? Because, I mean, what are you going to do when Greece defaults once it comes to the brink of default on its round of payments back to the Troika? What is your plan? There is no plan. That's the problem. I did a video about this a while ago. They literally don't know what to do. And there is no option. That's why it's ever-increasing austerity for Greece, or default and leaving the euro, to which there is no plan in place. So do you think that that's just going to end peacefully? Do you think it'll just be... I mean, there's not going to be riots in the streets. It's not going to be, I don't know, severe political unrest in Greece caused by the euro. It's not. No, I mean, when I was there in 2012, I went to Greece for a holiday in 2012, and there were protests and riots there, and my then girlfriend wouldn't let me go and see them, which was very disappointing. But yeah, do you think that the euro is a panacea, Jean-Claude? The British are discovering, as we are, day after day, new problems. He told students in Luxembourg. That's the reason why this process will take longer than initially thought. Well, it's because your plans are always incomplete. And this is the difference between the British and the continental mindsets. The continental mindset is very systemic, and it wants everything in place before anything begins. The British mindset is we'll muddle through. We'll just figure it out as we go along. And that's the difference. And that's why we're more successful than you. Because we account for things going wrong. We don't necessarily need a structured systemic solution. We can take things as they come. He says, we cannot find, for the time being, a real compromise as far as the remaining financial commitments of the UK are concerned. They have to pay, not in an impossible way, not in a revenge mood. I'm not hating the British. Glad you told me, because I wouldn't have known otherwise. The former Luxembourg Prime Minister, which is an important position, 62, used a pub metaphor to highlight what he sees as the UK's cash obligations. If you're sitting at a bar and ordering 28 beers, and then suddenly some of your colleagues are leaving, it's okay, but they have to pay. Well, yes, but we already have paid. We were a net contributor for decades to the EU. So why would we have to pay more? I mean, and the thing is, right, I actually don't care. Just pay them the 40 billion. Just pay them the 40 billion. Just pay them and then tell them to get fucked. You'll get no more money out of us. That's what I would say. Okay, fine. Just take the money. Just take it and go. You greedy, grasping Eurocrats. Europeans have to be grateful for so many things Britain has brought to Europe. Yeah, you're not going to be though, are you? During war, before war, after war, everywhere and every time. But now they have to pay. Yes, no good deed goes unpunished in the European Union. The euro protects us from war and it protects us from poverty. Have you asked the 50% unemployed Greek youth, and similar numbers in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and growing across the continent? Have you asked these people if the euro has protected them from poverty, because it looks like the euro is keeping them in poverty. And that's not my opinion, that's just the opinion of, I don't know, most economists. A senior EU negotiator warned Britain yesterday that a free trade deal could not offer the deep integration provided by the single market. Yes, that's the point. We don't want deep integration, we want free trade. You want free trade as well, but you need to continue with this kind of ideology that the EU has created. So Antonio Fernandez Martos, a trade expert who's on Michael Barnier's Article 50 task force, said the British demand to an end for freedom of movement for EU citizens and full regulatory autonomy has inevitable consequences, because it put the UK outside of the body of common EU regulations. That's true, and we will have to comply with EU regulations if we want to trade with the EU. That's something literally every country on earth does with every other country when they're trading. If a country says, look, our regulations say that, I don't know, car bodies have to be to this particular standard, then anyone who wants to sell cars in that country has to make sure the body of that car meets that standard. Yes, that's fine. That's totally normal. I fail to see why this is weird. The remarks will be seen as a rejoinder to Theresa May, who claimed in Florence last month that we can do so much better than the EU's free trade agreement with Canada, which is the bloc's most comprehensive to date. She says, oh no, this isn't her saying, sorry. We know the four freedoms are indivisible. You cannot have a sector-by-sector approach to the internal market, said Fernandez Martos. Well, I don't really see that that's true. I mean, I don't see why that needs to be the case. Why are the four freedoms indivisible? Can anyone tell me? I mean, it's never explained, and I've raised this before and no one has an answer, especially given how the four freedoms are not indivisible. You've got places like Switzerland and Norway that have some of these four freedoms, but not all of them. Very strange. It looks like the four freedoms are in fact completely divisible as and when, but and I love the way they call them the four freedoms, but making sure that all of these are met by literally as many people as possible increases the power of the EU. It's you saying to them, we want, and them saying, yes sir. That's what it is. But to return to Juncker's bar metaphor, here's a more accurate one. So 28 people are sat in a bar drinking beers. Only half of those people are paying for the beers. And after a day's worth of paying for beers, one of these people stands up and says, you know what, I actually don't need to be paying for your beers anymore. And I don't like the way that you are putting rules on me on how to pay for your beer. I'm actually going to leave. And then one of the other people turns around and says, you know what, you need to give me money to leave after paying for my beers all day. And then you have a much more accurate metaphor for the European Union. I am constantly amazed by the disconnected nature of the European political class. They are unbelievably up their own arses, and obviously in a bubble where they couldn't see the writing on the wall. They just were not paying attention to what people are thinking about the European Union. They're not paying attention to how people feel about the European Union. And as much as I hate to say it, a lot of politics is about how people feel. It's just the way life is. So we have to accept the fact that the European Union is being viewed by many people, myself included, as an oppressive force that is currently squatting on Europe, keeping parts of it down, and I'm not part of the parts that are being kept down. I'm actually part of those parts that are currently liberating themselves from doing the oppressing. Luckily, it's probably not going to last forever. I think that we're going to see some seismic changes when Britain leaves, and if we don't, more's the pity. Good luck, Europeans.